reported back is totally clear. So, is there any suggested amendment to the minutes from January 8th?
I didn't see one. So if anyone else has one, but I would make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Seconded. All those in favor? Okay. Very good. So minutes are accepted as written. Bill, thank you so much. Bill, how are things on the village board side of things?
Very good. Very well. In terms of news, Ulster County Planning Board went to the monthly request related to
Is that somebody letting you know that? Oh. Oh, okay.
hello.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, Bill.
Okay, so let me start again. Ulster County Planning Board met Wednesday last week. Nothing of we discussed related to New Paltz, other than a couple of items perhaps of interest. Is the county's going to expand and enhance the ADU grant program that would give homeowners up to $125,000 to build an ADU. Certain restrictions apply, of course, but they're looking for more money, several $1 million to expand that program a little bit throughout the county. The other thing I noticed was that communities are adopting STR laws, and those STR laws are actually they're adopting ADU laws that are including restrictions on STRs.
So the one doesn't.
Right, so you're not building an accessory dwelling unit to operate as an Airbnb or a short-term rental. And more communities are doing that, so that's a terrific thing. In terms of village board, you may have heard that there's discussions underway to combine both the village and town. And this is something that we feel is a almost necessary step, but that will be decided by the voters. It's a long process. There's money that we applied to help pay for the research, the surveys, the studies, whatnot. This was last done, and Michael knows this, back in 2002, was it, or 3, something like that, about 20 years ago. So, and prior to that was 10 years prior, almost every 10 years since about the 40s. And then it even came up, I believe, in the last century. Well, in the 19th century, there were talks of doing that.
Really?
It's what I saw something mention it, but don't quote me on it. But I think at one point there was an effort to
New York State plays the long game, doesn't it?
yeah. Well, changes in the law, given what's there, there's still a lot of hard feelings that were developed the last time it was approached. I suggested that we if we're to do this, start with a clean slate and just really take a very methodical, engaged, transparent process. And then we'll have to go up before be voted on by, and we're looking at this November. So it's going to be a quick process relative to previous efforts. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that may interest you. The other thing is I had sent an email about looking again at the historic district to expand the footprint of that. This was triggered by a photograph I saw of, I believe it was Oakwood or some homes. Obviously there for a number of years. The photograph dated in 1920 something. That puts that area in a 100-year established zone, I would imagine. There's plenty of those structures scattered about the village, and it may now be time to, since this first phase was accomplished, we should start looking at other areas in the village to designate. So that's all I got.
That's great. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
In terms of the accessory dwelling units and short-term rentals,
Yeah.
is the county putting together any model legislation for?
it comes to the county and then they essentially send back a required modification
Yeah,
that says to them, no less than 30 days. Something
okay,
along
but
those
they're
lines.
not putting
They're not,
together any
no,
model.
no, most people have their own STR laws and they just need to insert this one paragraph that we have in our own.
Yeah, I
They
was
could just
thinking
look
more
from
about
that.
the accessory dwelling units, because there are lots of different conditions that people establish.
Oh,
for
yeah,
those.
yeah. But that's a required modification. So,
Yeah.
So in the county's eyes, in order to tap into that money, it would be a minimum 30-day lease or.
No,
30 days
I'm sorry.
greater.
Yeah, greater than 30.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Minimum
Yeah,
lease time, 30 days. Yeah,
yeah, no, I understand that. I was just curious if they were.
yeah, the objective is not to have people start building all these units
Yeah, of
for
course.
short-term,
Totally.
right, transient population. We want to be able to house those who are unhoused now.
Yeah.
We're having difficulties being housed. So that's the plan. And it's, seems to be catching hold. I mean, people are interested in these ADUs. I mean,
for what it's worth, I'm seeing this from all corners of the US.
Yeah.
In communities that I happen to be in, noticed
right,
newspaper articles or talked to friends over the summer.
yeah. No, it's a huge deal.
Yeah,
Yeah, part of the reason I brought it up, asked about county model legislation, is that the village of New Paltz, though I don't know if it's been changed, but when I was on the planning board, the legislation at that time was cumbersome
Yeah,
because of certain requirements about where the size of the building
Mhm.
relative to the principal residence, or whether it had to be attached to the building and so forth. And
Right.
so it might be that there are opportunities for the county to weigh in. Their required modifications don't typically address those issues. If your legislation is set up, they deal.
Right.
I mean, that's my experience. So that's why I was wondering if perhaps they were.
yeah. I'll check to see if they are offering them up, but to my knowledge,
Yeah.
they do not. It's just been, localities like to do their own sometimes,
yeah.
it's just, and they find it to be important, so they want to write their own legislation. Of course, look to other nearby communities for,
Yeah, right.
inspiration,
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
all right.
one other thing, though, is there any update on the building department staffing?
I have not heard anything,
Okay,
and I have a hard stop at 8. I apologize.
well, thank you so much, Bill. Everybody, that's great. Next item on the agenda is an application for a certificate of appropriateness, HPC 2401. This is from Jude Costigan representing Historic Huguenot Street at 88 Huguenot Street. Jude, do you want to come up to the table here? And
Sure.
wherever you're comfortable, we have a microphone that'll pick up your voice. And probably everybody's seen the application, but Val's got it projected. Jude, do you want to just quickly run through what's here and what we talked about, what your hopes are?
Yeah, sure. So the building is 17 Broadhead Avenue. Historic Huguenot Street owns it, and we rent it to tenants. There's 3 apartments in the building, and the front of the building has a 2-story porch. And back in the fall, we had an insurance agent come and kind of do sort of an audit of our entire property. And they were a little bit concerned about the front porch. It's like current condition. There was some rot on some of the railings, and the railings were not up to code either. They're a little bit short, about 28 inches, where they really should be close to 36. So they told us keep the tenants off of the porch for now and get to work on trying to bring some of those measurements up to the proper height, as well as just replacing any and all material that's sort of deteriorating. So that is what kind of brings me here, trying to figure out what the best approach is to meet those requirements, with time and money being a relatively important factor for us as well. And, safety obviously is the biggest concern because people do like to hang out there and they do use the space. We don't allow them to use it right now, but we'd like to be able to give them their space back as soon as possible. Certainly by the warmer months too, because I'm sure they want it back.
And it's, in effect, it's part of the lease they signed, isn't it, really? I mean,
Yeah.
and that it was a functioning porch.
Mhm.
when it's in- I might just add, Camilla and I did a site visit, saw the rotted sections and degraded sections with our own eyes. Tried to do some thinking on the spot about possibly, given that the building code requirement of a higher railing just isn't a negotiable. One of the problems that we immediately spotted is that it would take the railing up over the shoulders of the current posts or columns into the turned section, which really wouldn't look very good. And so talked about possibly chopping the columns off at the top, raising them up and scabbing on a section at the bottom, which is a possibility, but then it's very labor intensive. It's hard to get that perfectly right. As we kicked around ideas for probably more than half an hour, what we came up with is what's in the plan, which is basically 3 phases. One is to make it safe with temporary rope, which we kind of agreed by handshake, as it were, that wouldn't last more than 6 months, just to kind of make it legal and safe to be up there. It wouldn't look particularly good, but I think everybody would recognize that it's temporary. And then the project for this summer would be the upper story, which is the most degraded. And then the project for the summer of 25 would be redoing the lower section in the same style with the same materials. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Yeah.
An interesting feature about the porches that they're actually cantilevered from the main structure. So there are heavy beams protruding out of the front of the house. I've actually never seen that done. So it's not just tacked on, which is actually kind of a good thing. It means that in a construction phase, it doesn't have to be braced from the ground up, probably. There's probably a way to do that without massively building a structure to hold it together. That seemed like a good solution to Camilla and me. I think I don't want to speak directly for you. I think we agreed that seemed fair, and what we could do then is kind of punt the decision about what the design actually looks like, to give you some time to conduct research, see what is affordable and what either replicates or closely replicates what's there.
Mhm. Okay.
Any questions, anyone?
You've got a situation, yeah. Some of the rope will buy you some time across there, and you could find a good better solution.
There's a nice example.
How are the wooden floors? I mean, just in the picture, they look kind of rough and ready.
What they need most of all is really a paint job, but there are a few boards that could probably be replaced, or at least braced up from the bottom a little bit better. Nothing's necessarily that spongy, really, but there are some like dips starting to form.
Are they like tongue and groove boards that
Yes.
are a little more complex to hold in?
They are,
one
but
board?
that's not
Yeah.
not an insurmountable challenge. One of the things that strikes me as probably a long-term benefit is, assuming that you decide to replace the columns entirely, there are these little aluminum feet that you can get. They're not visible. They wouldn't be visible from the street. They get the post off the floor, because that's usually what happens, is water puddles and then it starts to wick up through the post. One of the posts was just totally eaten apart.
Yeah,
And it also preserves the floor better because you don't have water resting there, snow resting there. So as we talked about options, increasingly it seemed like not trying to fix it right away, figuring out a way to get it into this summer's budget and next summer's budget and just really do it right.
yeah. I mean, most of the materials that are required are pretty relatively common. You can find them at hardware stores and such like that. And I mean, there's a lot of parts that are better than others, but we kind of, if you look at it long enough, you kind of notice that it's been tacked on a lot over the years, and just having sort of a fresh, clean start with sort of an entire facelift would be rather ideal in this situation, just because it really needs a whole redo at this point.
I mean, it faces north, I think, so you get a lot of weather coming in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's true.
The paint is the paint job is necessary. There's rot in some pretty bad locations. We'll have to replace all the spindles because they're all only 2 feet. But
And there's too much space between them, so the code dictates a narrower.
Between the spindles, really?
I think it's 3.5 inches now.
yeah, yeah, that's
So
correct.
just in all these ways, it's not compliant.
And you would, I had the same question as Stephen about the decking. Just, it does look like, it feels like an opportunity to repair those that need repairing. And the structural, the joists are fine, as far as you can tell.
Yeah, I actually did have a contractor come in November to kind of pick their brain about it as well, and they looked at the structural stability of it, and they thought it was fine. I mean, their original idea was just to, basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Cut new railings to fit the rounded edges of the columns. But that really is not the look that we want, nor would it really be the safest option, in my opinion. So the whole thing really just needs a facelift. But I was planning on incorporating any boards into the project as well.
Yeah, I
It'd
think
be a lot easier when you have everything on.
it'll be a lot
Yeah.
easier
Mhm.
and it'd just be such a shame to have to go in and do that when you've got a fresh and
Yeah.
solid structure.
Mhm.
I mean, it'll be an expense, but it's also, it goes quickly. We've done it twice on the house.
Yeah, the construction isn't that complicated. I think we'll be able to do it in-house. I mean, it'll be a little pricey, but we'll be able to handle it, I think. And like I said, most of the materials are relatively common and, should be able to get our hands on it pretty easily. Won't be that time consuming either.
So a question I had for the board, and I'm not presuming a vote one way or another, but one of the things that we talked about on the site visit is that there are some really good vinyl materials. Like some columns look pretty good, and I just wanted to ask how people feel about that. If the product is indistinguishable from wood.
But it may not be any less expensive. And it seems not particularly appropriate for Dugan Street. But I wouldn't rule it out if cost is a good determinant.
I think you're right on the first point. I mean, the good stuff, I'm thinking of a brand in particular that's not cheap.
Yeah.
Because it's good.
I mean, I would imagine.
And then there's the appropriateness cost.
Most of this could just be made of pine, right? For the most part, and just pine and painted.
Mhm.
Seems pretty inexpensive.
Something non-wood may buy you more time between paint jobs, but it might not, look the same.
The other thing is vinyl is much more susceptible to mold. Um, on the north side in particular, so maybe that's,
You're the, yeah.
maybe scrubbing or something.
Yeah, you do get, not so much mold, but you do get like,
Moss,
algae.
algae, yeah, moss can.
So like you do in the kind of wash that off. I mean, I'm happy that if you find products that you want us to look at. Fine to consider it.
What do you feel, Steve?
That would be fine.
It's we're gonna need another meeting once you have designs.
Mhm.
We can keep this open, I think, so you actually don't have to do the paperwork again.
Okay,
But let's come back with some options as soon as you feel like you have them.
yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a plan. And yeah, I mean, I think the general atmosphere around Huguenot Street is trying to keep things as similar as possible. So wood definitely isn't a problem.
And personally, I'm more comfortable there too.
Mhm.
Alex, does anybody feel like you have a question and consideration? Would there be a motion?
Maybe there will be some guidance there that would give us some leeway, not to compromise safety, of course, but maybe there will be some information that we could use.
Yeah. Good. No, maybe at the end of the meeting, let's just review exact, that's one of the online
Yes,
sessions.
send us, and remember.
Yeah.
Just to recommend.
That's great. With that in mind, would there be a motion to approve as submitted?
I move that application 2401 be approved. I guess with the proviso that the applicant come back for further consultation.
Yeah, what are we approving?
So it's a three-phase.
Oh, approving that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess I should have reviewed that. So phase one is rope about 6 inches above the current.
Yeah.
And I did mention to Jude that I thought keeping the rope on the inside of the columns would be slightly better looking. And it may take two courses of rope to achieve that. So phase one would be immediate to just get the rope in place. Phase two would be the replacement of the upper section. Phase three would be next summer. So we have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Camilla.
Can I just add an amendment to it? That we are approving the description and timetable of work with an understanding that we'll review the materials before we have the certificate of appropriateness.
That's a very good point. Yeah, actually interesting procedural point. So we're really,
Because we're keeping the application open if we approve the certificate of appropriateness. Now, then I think the application is closed.
closed. Yeah,
That would be my friendly amendment.
yeah, that's a really good friendly amendment. So, Stephen, you comfortable with
As
that?
amended.
I think we're all saying the same thing. So
Okay.
what we're approving right now is to go ahead with phase one. We would like to see you again to proceed with phases 2 and 3, at your earliest convenience,
Mhm.
probably next month.
Yeah, we meet with our HPC, our own HPC committee, this Thursday. So I'm gonna run all this by them and kind of pick their brains and see what they think about it all, but should have more by next month for sure.
Right.
All right.
Very good. So we have a motion, we have a friendly amendment that constitutes a second.
I think Camilla
Oh,
seconded.
seconded. Yeah, with everybody comfortable with the amendment? All those in favor?
All right.
Unanimous. We go.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So literally, as soon as you want, you can do the roping, and we'll tentatively plan to see you in March. I
Okay,
think it's
yes.
March 13th? No,
March 11th.
11, March 11.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to have a pretty good plan by then. I'd like to get it done sooner than later, so.
Yeah, it sounds, yeah,
Thank you.
I know the tenants want it done sooner than later.
of course they do.
So,
Great,
Appreciate it.
thanks a lot, Jude. Okay. Let's go on to item D, updates on the planning board and ZBA applications that have been referred to us for design review. Basically, I see two things outstanding. One is 5 and 7 that were before the planning board at their last meeting. It looks like our recommendations have made their way into their recommendations. However, I still haven't seen what the designs look like, so I wanted to ask if everybody's in favor of my trying to chase that down and get it back to us.
Please do.
And understood from the meeting, if they had been submitted within the last couple of days for the meeting, so they may or may not yet.
Okay, well, that would simplify it. We don't have to ask. I got that same impression that maybe they came in but too late for the,
If you check the drive, and I'll do it too, but you might want to check the drive.
very good, check drive or yes. And the second one is, I think I'm remembering correctly that the public hearing has now closed on the Water Street Hotel project. I also had the impression from what I read that there's still a lot of questions and the designs in flux. So I think my suggestion would be to reach out to planning board again, just make sure they know that we're here to look at anything that changes a lot or changes from what we approved and recommended. Is that okay with everybody? And I don't think there's anything else pending that seemed urgent. Well, I'm missing anything.
There is something. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were aware of that before. Okay. Do you know what the nature of the application for 181 is?
I haven't had a chance. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I think that at the next meeting, there should be some report back on those things. Any questions there? Okay. Item E or category E, item 1. I thought the presentation of the Partners in Preservation Awards went probably better than it's ever gone, in that we had so many people who seemed enthusiastic. Everybody wanted to, I never said anything about saying a few words, but everybody wanted to. And I thought that was a lovely and spontaneous thing. I think there was genuine appreciation for being recognized. So I feel like it's a great success. We got a nice article in the paper. Has everybody had a chance to see it? I thought I would, with your permission, send a photo and a scan of this article to all the recipients. Unless somebody thinks that's a bad idea, I thought it would be a nice follow-up. Okay. We're very, very good about that award. I think gotten something rolling in the community. Camilla, how about the art show?
So the actual planning is going full speed ahead. I spoke to James last Monday and we played around with some ideas about when would be the best time to have the reception. Because the show is going to run for 2 months, we thought that June 1st would be the best date. It doesn't really interfere with any other events in the village or holidays. So if it's suitable for everyone, maybe we could go ahead and finalize the June 1st as a reception day. And we have the option from having the reception between 1 to 3 p.m. or 1 to 4. But the library is closing at 4, so I didn't want to.
I could make sure that if we needed a little extra time, if we did stay before, that there'd be no problem with getting out the door. So whatever works best for the committee and for the event, then we can make that happen.
Okay, usually we have it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And usually 2 hours is sufficient. I
Yes,
think.
and then, you know,
Yeah.
plenty of time to. And I guess if we approve these times, then the press release can go out.
Mhm.
I will send a copy to James as well, the library.
You have your,
And I have
Yeah,
the
well-
mailing list to notify artists who participated in the past. And we already have quite a few artists really interested in it. And I thought that maybe it would be nice to formally invite some former HPC members and village officials since this is their time.
it's a lovely idea.
I know I was interested
Yeah.
in
that's a
talking to
lovely-
her.
And we've never, I don't know if we've ever officially invited the village board.
We did.
We
a
did.
few times, yes.
But printed engraved, or, engraved. So, we might want to do something with 10th, just in terms
Yeah,
of like
just-
designing a new, doesn't have to be for the press room. It looked great to me. You were right that I didn't see the last part, but that all checked out as well.
I simplified the
Here's the dog.
guidelines. Since we don't have so much space in the paper. Some of the more obvious guidelines I have,
Yeah,
but I think artists will know what to do and how to present their works.
that sounds good. So everybody's comfortable with that date for the reception?
Yeah.
My
Seems
calendar
like
now.
Seems like a good memorable date and it's. where the big day-
Writing them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I think, ideal. That's great. I don't know that we need a vote on this, but unless there's any objection, go right ahead with the press release. Thank you, Camilla. It's really such a good event. Budget is item 3. So about a week and a half ago, I got a request for the 24-25 fiscal year budget. As I've drafted it, I've asked for only 2 things different. It's basically a flat budget with an increase for Valerie. That increase is kind of dictated by what the village asked us to ask for. And then I wanted to try to get $250 for the reception for the art show. We've had that twice now, I think.
We have 200.
200, but twice they've supported us.
Yes.
And that sort of feels like maybe we should just make that a line item. So I bumped it up a little bit, but I was also able to shave a little bit off. We had budgeted $700 for legal notices, anticipating a big mailing for the downtown district that didn't need to be done. So I shaved $100 off that and shaved $100 off, give me a second. Shave $100 off that and $100 off our postage, given that we do so much by email now. With the result that we're asking for only $50 more on the contractual side. So the budget is about $440 more than last year on a budget of 10,000.
That's fun.
Does that feel comfortable for you?
Thank you for massaging the numbers to make it work out well, and I think that covers what we need to cover.
I think it'll, it's not an absolute certainty that we can add that line, but so far we funded it. Val, are you comfortable having us not ask for a laptop specifically? We do have some money there. It's designated for computers if something should. What is decent cost? 500 million. Well, we'll just go begging. So, is there a motion to approve that draft budget? Moved by Michael.
Second.
Let's see. All those in favor? Okay, that's what'll go forward. It'll go forward this week. Okay, that's an action item. Bluestone sidewalk survey. So we've talked about this for some time. Bill, you actually initiated it. So I reached out to the gentleman that you recommended, Mr. Peter Roberts, who lives in the community, I guess over at Woodland Pond. He gave me 3 names of people who have Bluestone expertise. And what I was going to suggest is that I try to get one or maybe more of them to come to the March meeting to educate us for a while. I don't want to ask for a whole lot of time, but just to educate ourselves a little bit about that. And then either simultaneously or after that, we sort of divide the village up into 5 or 6 slices and each commit to doing a survey of that section, compile the results, and at least know what we're dealing with.
Sure.
So are we looking for existing Bluestone sidewalks and their conditions? Or are we also looking for opportunities to add Bluestone sidewalks?
Why don't we think about both? I mean, given that the work is kind of walking around and taking
Okay.
notes, I think I hadn't thought about the latter, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah. At a minimum, we'd like to know how much Bluestone is left.
Right.
I can just say anecdotally, on my street, there was a bit of repaving. It was actually to make the corner handicap accessible, you know, the sort of dip. And out came a big piece of Bluestone that sat there and sat there and sat there for months. And eventually I called Tim or Blue, I don't remember. I think it was Tim. And I said, there's a big piece of Bluestone. I think it belongs to the village. Come and get it. And they did. And it was one of those historic things that's about 4 inches thick and has weathered everything. And so, you know, maybe there are some other cases of that, or maybe there's a stockpile of Bluestone that we don't know about. But at least we can gather some facts. So I'll reach out to Mr. Peter Roberts and see if he is willing to come, and otherwise he gave me names, or I'll seek his advice on who might be the most appropriate person, and see if someone would come to our meeting in March, if that's okay. If everybody's good with that, let's hand it over to Michael and Stephen. What's cooking on who else?
Previous application at 130, Huguenot, Dina and Mary, construction continues and they're just continuing to work. Looks like things are going
Good.
so it's nice. Otherwise, I don't have too much other than the
You mentioned the trees at
190.
191.
Yeah, the application for trimming and or removal of some trees came to the Shade Tree Commission. And some of that is not within their purview, and there's one tree very close to the road that does need trimming. And then everything else is more than 20 feet away, and
That's on the purview.
the applicant's choice.
I think I didn't realize that trimming also requires a permit. If it comes
I
under-
guess they asked for an opinion about what they could do. So yes,
Okay.
I believe currently you can trim anything that's within 20 feet. You can't remove it without a permit. You can trim.
Okay, that seems logical. I'm glad that they reached out to the Shade Tree Commission. That's a good sign. Val, right in the memory, this was all happening right at the end of last year. Did we not have success with our letter?
A letter was returned to us, probably, the property was subdivided, and I think there's probably still some issues with the address. I'm gonna try it again, I'm gonna go down, hand over, and then chance to do it again.
Okay, yeah, that would be nice, because all signs are this is going to be a good relationship. Okay, great. Michael, is there anything? that you-
No, nothing
Okay.
else that's within there for you.
Good. Quiet month on Huguenot Street. I have one small thing to add. It's really a report. I got a call from Adriana Havner, representing one of the committees at the Reformed Church, who asked for permission. Had sort of gotten the word that signage had to be permitted. What they want to do is put up for a few months, 3 to 5 signs of about 12 by 18 inches, advertising the NYSERDA grant program for energy conservation that they've signed on to. It's very temporary. They're asking for a few months only. The signs are tiny, and it's a good cause. And I just kind of took initiative and I said, go right ahead. We don't really need to know, but that I would like to record it in the minutes that it's been. Seems like absolutely right.
Is that something that the grant asked that recipients do?
I think so, but probably in a pretty general way that, you know, a contractor might be happy for you to have their yard sign while the work or after the work is done. So she said it's definitely a few months only and the scale is tiny, so.
That's fine.
Sure. Okay, that's that. Camilla, would you talk about 12 Plattekill a little bit? And this is where that handout comes in.
So Claire is proposing to replace the windows in the building, and I think most of it will be pretty straightforward, like for like. But in the front of the house, there is an interesting window detail with the arch that we don't know if the contractor is proposing to replicate or what the plans would be with this window. That has been in touch with the contractor, and I think in the next few days, we will be able to talk to him and see what happens, and then we can find out some more details about how they are going to proceed and what will happen.
Yeah, it's a nice
It would be a
feature.
shame to- but I don't know if it's possible for this contractor to do something similar.
Similar, almost certainly, like the divided lights could be, but it would be lovely if that could be kept.
So divided lights are pretty straightforward, I think, but with our-
My hunch is that Claire would like as much as anyone to keep it. But we'll see. But you'll meet with her.
I hope you check on it.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. That's a really nice detail that a lot of us didn't see. The quadrennial audit report follow-up is item 7. So we received SHPO's response on January 22nd. It was a positive response. They seem happy with the plan that we outlined to get on this code revision question, which we are. And then just the other thing is internally, they wanted a little more consistency between our minutes and what's sent to the applicant. They wanted to see sort of, I guess, more of a summary of our deliberation they presented, and that's an easy fix. So I think, we can call this a success. I think that the code revisions, which they are willing to review, aren't necessarily an uphill battle, but there's something uphill to every code revision. So I don't expect to have an answer next month, but maybe in a couple of months we can get this decided. And after the meeting, I was going to speak with Michael and Val about what the best sequencing of who we show this draft to when would be. But I think the takeaway is, the audit was successful in that, we're doing almost everything right. And they pointed out some things that we could do better. Those 2 things, plus they do want us doing more sort of training and keeping current. And I think that is fair. So, it's already suggested a couple of ways we can do that. I think bringing somebody in to educate us about Bluestone's formal education, and we will track that in the future. So any questions there?
No, I was gonna ask if Bill, if you want to just talk to us briefly about process, if you submit some suggested code changes to the HPC portion of the village code. Would we submit them to you, or you want to take a look at them first?
Actually,
Okay, great.
Okay, before the broader board.
we
Okay,
get to do that and then
Okay,
send a
yeah,
docs.
all right, we'll do that and can give you the context of what SHPO had asked us
yeah,
to consider making changes to. Okay, great, thanks.
yeah. I'd like to get it done. It doesn't seem insurmountable, but obviously every code revision takes some time. Thanks, that would be great. Item 8 is that we're in good shape budget-wise. About 67% of the year is gone. We've expended only about 50% of our budget. We're way under on contractual, and we're right where we should be with personnel. So that's good news. Any questions there? Okay. The annual New York State training requirement, harassment and discrimination, is February 14th at 9. If you happen to have time to do that, you can also do the post February 14th on demand version. You just need to have a profile set up with NeoGov, which I've done before and always seem to have to ask for my login again, but it does work. And I think that I would recommend, I'm the worst offender on this. I always leave these till December and they kind of haunt me from about June. So maybe February 14th, if you have time, just get that one done. And Camilla had mentioned the webinar recordings. Would this be a good place just to reiterate the date of the one on building
Yes, that's February
7? They often are 2 p.m. That might be useful because I definitely had my eye on the peace sign on the side of the Bistro, thank you, Nathan. You know, as such an integral thing in New Paltz. I mean, so much so that it might be nice for somebody to write an essay on how that came about and all that. I think there are people who know that. But if you, when you do any of these things, please let Val know so that we can track them so that we're not kind of left out in the cold for the next audit. Because I know, for example, I have done things that I never recorded, couldn't remember the name of, and therefore had nothing to report, even though I had actually done some. Yeah, when you register, let them, we'll just track them. I have, then if there are no questions around that, other business. To me, the thing that I remembered a couple of weeks ago when we started the agenda was how pumped up I am to start piloting some quote unquote episodes of this oral history recording project. Have you heard about this, Michael? No. I feel like this is something that's been kind of sitting on the shelf for about 2 or 3 years, but a couple of years ago, we spent some money on a journalist style hand recording. I forget what the brand name is, Testcam or something. Maybe you guys know the name. What's the brand of recorders that reporters always use? I think it is an H1. Good. You know, it's like $100, $125. But it's the thing that people use, and it gives really good sound quality. So a pretty inexpensive purchase, which would be used to sit down with people who have an association with a particular property in the village, who might just sit down and just do a very informal kind of oral history recording about that building. And I thought about, particularly in this last round of Partners in Preservation, we've got some people who may not have the long view of the building, but for example, you know, did a recent renovation, and that's as valuable for posterity as anything else. So I'd like to just kind of pilot that, maybe with the idea of eventually seeking a grant to expand it, make it a little more professional. The real dream would be to tie it to pin drops on a village map where you could click and find out about places, but that's way beyond my ability. And I think we should just pilot them and see what they sound like, whether it seems like a worthy thing. So if nobody objects, we'll get that started. If anybody wants to conduct an interview, have somebody in mind, just say,
Maybe they would like.
maybe you guys would like a piece of this. It'd be a good internship too, yeah.
Really great.
And at least initially, my idea is not to do a lot of talking, basically let the person associated with the property recollect. It doesn't have to go anywhere, it doesn't have to advance a thesis about the property, just create a record. So do let me know if you want to conduct one of those, and I can lend you the machine. Thanks. The H1. A couple of other.
Can I make a suggestion? She may have some room. She might have organization.
What a nice idea. Oh, I'm seeing that, like a little newspaper thing.
Well, newspaper thing, or, you know, some people actually have sent in their property's history. And there may be something within that archive. These sort of messages from, because they may not be something they will 10 years.
Right.
So maybe historic significance, you know, worth finding out. If there's anything else.
Yeah.
Those files are actually pretty interesting. They're organized by street and by house. And
Yeah.
then I looked up our former house on Prospect Street, and there were little clippings from the newspapers from the 20s and 30s about such and such had been bought, this property had been bought, and who was building, and live there and things like that. And so there are, many things that can be added to.
Agreed. Those books are a great resource. So yeah, let's kind of make that a spring project, and I love ideas. And again, if you want to conduct some of these interviews, by all means. 3 really quick things, and then I think I have said everything I want to say. One is that I was invited to give the second Sally Rhodes lecture next fall, September, October, probably. And it'll be on historic preservation, some aspect that I have not yet worked out, but I agreed to do it.
Imagine that.
So that, well, I'm honored and happy to do it.
James, he's all over.
James he's a good guy. Thanks. Secondly, I was invited to a listening session by Historic Huguenot Street. I guess they are thinking about a visitor center. I think they're in very, very early scoping and planning stages here. And so I think they conducted a total of 5 evening listening sessions. I attended one by invitation. I was massively late to it. I felt terrible, but I just wanted you to know that that is in the works. They were working with a professional firm that does outreach and long-term planning, and I suspect that's tied to financial planning for such a firm. This would be a new building. It wasn't because I was late. They may have said that, or there may be some thought to converting that Deo, or I don't really know.
Years ago, they proposed a pretty extensive redesign of the street that would have included a new building, some vacant property, but that was a while ago, and I'm sure
This may follow on that, or
so there were other parts to it. I don't remember all the details now, but
seemed like a worthy thing for them to be thinking about.
yeah,
When I was asked about a visitor center, one of the things that did come to mind, I was really just thinking on my feet. In some ways, Huguenot Street is the victim of its own beauty and historic layout, because there isn't an obvious place where anything starts.
Right.
I think the place that you get tickets, if you know it, and it's obvious, but it's not something that somebody driving up for the first time necessarily sees. And I don't have a solution for that, except to say that that's something that could be solved by an obvious visitor center where everything starts and finishes. And then last of all, as I was pulling papers together for the meeting, something fell out of my files that had been there for months, which is that the former Stazione restaurant is under new owners now. There's a nice piece in the paper that tipped me off to this. That building is landmarked, but the original owners, or the owners at the time, didn't want any part of. I don't know what I've done with that. The original owner didn't seem to want any part of having a plaque, which is theirs for free. I've even installed them for them. So I thought I would approach the new owners and just ask if they would like this thing and explain why I think it would be a good idea, given that the building was already landmarked.
Please.
There's no objection, and we'll do that. Good. Could be that. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll check with you right after to see what that name is. Everybody, that's all I have. Is there any new business or anything we should circle back to?
No.
Can I get a hallelujah for a 1 hour meeting? Okay. Motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? Adjournment within 1 hour. I don't know if that's ever happened. You guys hit the right meeting. 'Cause sometimes it's 2.5.
One applicant, so that helps.
One applicant with a pretty straightforward problem. Great. Everybody, thank you so much.
Thank
I feel
you.
like we're off to a good start this year. Again, Michael, thanks for being at the
No
helm.
problem. And you wanted to chat a little?
Yeah, let's just, I mean, in some ways you may have answered part of that, but
Yeah, I didn't know if you had any more specific questions.